Hey guys, can we talk about NixOS in particular? I mean, thank you guys for joining. As with all programming things, I found out about NixOS on Twitter, and as with like all programmers, I have ADHD, and so I just ditched everything that I was working on at the moment and just like, jumped on it. And so this is when I first saw it. That was like February-ish, and I've really just started using it like April, May-ish. So this is like my 4-ish months of experience exploring Nix. So I went from just struggling how to get the Wi-Fi working, and now I actually merged the PR for Chromebook touchpad drivers. So if you have a Chromebook, you could use the same touchpad driver that's in Chrome OS. So yay.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So before we just talk about the actual OS, we talked about this dysfunctional world. Like it's not a functional system. So like, what do you mean by like dysfunctional? Because like how could like a programming language or operating system be not functional?
Procedure, I think. Procedure versus functional.
Yeah. Here I was just talking about. Reproducibility depends on the path and the environment. So like if we're talking about like paths, then like if it's like a super simple bash script, then you do like shebang bin bash, right? But if you actually do, you guys all know this, it's like if we do bin bash, this actually doesn't run on certain systems because the binary of bash wouldn't be in bin roots bash, right? And so it's gonna throw you an error if you try to do it. It's like, hey, I don't find the bash there, right? And so actually if you do this on NixOS, it won't work because Nix doesn't store the binaries in that folder. So that's like the path dependency. So it's like if you have an absolute path, then if you have something that's not on their path, it won't work. Right? So it's just a very simple example, and it also depends on the environment. So let's say like program A depends on like foo 1.0. The program B depends on foo 1.2. Also, if you have a system, and if you're just using like say apt, then you can't have, or you could have it, but it's like a hack, right? If you want to have two different versions of one software, it's just gonna go for the latest one. But the program you might want might not be ready for the latest one. So it's like you gotta like go through all the hoops, right? And so yeah, apt, it won't actually work. So this problem is even worse if you do with like if program A depends on GNOME 3.1 and program B depends on GNOME 3.12, then you're like, how do I have two versions of gnomes in one system, right? And so the solution would be like a Docker, right? Would be a container. And if you look on like most solutions that you see, they're mostly just like containers. So you'll see like just containers everywhere, right? So you have Docker, you have can't even name them all right now, but yeah. So they're all Dockers, yeah, or they're all containers. So they're like it's just it's confusing. It's just put it in a container. But Nix is fundamentally different in a sense that it tries to do reproducibility within the package management. So what is NixOS? Actually, the additional thing I should mention is that if you run apt update and apt upgrade, then that app, it will be based on your current system. So like if you have a program that needs an update, then it will update it. But if you have another program that depends on the past version of that program, then it won't actually run because you just updated it for one program. So it's not reproducible. So what is NixOS? NixOS is purely functional OS based on Nix packages. So you have Nix packages and then you have NixOS. NixOS is just using the package management and building some, having some modules that set up something like Xorg or the desktop environment. So it actually takes a lot of things from Haskell. So a lot of Nix guys will actually be Haskell guys. So and the creator of Nix is actually, I think he likes Haskell. I'm not sure, but it takes a lot of things from Haskell. So what is Nix packages, right? So Nix packages is a purely functional package manager based on Nix. And so on the bottom layer you would have this Nix system. It's like a purely functional system that includes a lot of things like the language. There's actually a Nix language, but and the Nix packages is a package manager based on Nix.
Language for what?
Language for Nix. So Nix is a language.
Oh, okay, got it.
There is
Oh,
a
not
Nix
really, got
language.
it, but okay.
It's like domain specific, but it's not.
That's I actually hate the naming because you're like Nix. If you just say like Nix, it's like Unix, right? So I don't know. But anyways, it's a purely functional package manager. So pure as in it doesn't depend on anything outside of the Nix system. So if you have a Nix package manager, all you need is that. You don't need to do anything else, or the thing actually doesn't need to do anything else. And so it actually runs on OS X2 and any Linux system. So so I'm not sure if it runs on BSDs. Maybe it does. I'm not sure, but it should run on every Linux system. So what is Nix packages? Everything is actually stored in this. So if you install Nix packages for the first time, what it'll do is it'll create a directory in your root directory called Nix. So and everything gets stored there. So directory is like a folder. Like you have your root folder, which is your like the most lowest layer, I should say, and it makes a folder there called Nix. And inside Nix is Nix store and Nix var. Var as in variables, like temporary stuff, and store as in it stores everything there. So everything your package manager or every software and everything that you use will be actually installed on store. So and the store is read-only. So I guess it's more secure than like say Docker, where you could. There has been like a vulnerability in Docker where like you could just run stuff on the actual system, right? I don't know, but anyways, in Nix it's actually read-only. This is good and bad, and you'll see why it's good and why it's bad. And so all input arguments of packages are hashed. So it takes so let's say if you have like, okay, so you just installed curl, right? So if you have curl, then what it'll do is it'll hash like what curl wants, like what compiler curl wants, what library it wants, and all the like scripts, everything. It hashes that, and then it takes the output and it puts it in front of the actual name. So like if you, on a traditional system, you'll have everything in the bin folder, and in the bin folder you'll have just like, hey, curl, wget, curl, or curl, whatever, right? But what it'll do is it'll hash everything and put it in front. So it'll look something like this. So this is from my system. So in the Nix store, it has this hash, and then it has curl, and then like what version number.
This is scary.
And
This is scary.
So So if you actually go on here, it'll just like if you do like ls, it's like. But so they do this because it's like if you have the same program, it'll be the same hash. If you don't have the same program, it won't be the same hash rate. So,
But if you
You can
have the
specify the
same,
hash also. You can specify the hash that you want to be downloaded.
yeah.
Inside.
if the same program is compiled, for example, with two different settings for a compiler, for example, optimization 2 and optimization for size, they all have different hashes.
They'll have different programs. It'll be installed side by side. You'll actually have two versions of code.
Interesting.
So like it also like the naming scheme, so you don't have any like collisions in naming. So like if you do like which curl, it'll show you. It'll actually show you this. If you download anything, it'll be for your user. It won't be for anybody else. So it'll do like Nix profile bin curl, but it actually links back to store. So if you do read link, it will actually send you back to the binary, which is stored in Nix store.
They're like user access controls, so like an admin can access every program.
Yes. So you have different binaries for different users. So if you're root, then your binary will be in root. If you're just a user, it'll be in users.
Okay, who decides where does this link point to?
So if you installed it as a user, then Nix will automatically just have it as a user. If you installed it as root, it'll do it as root.
No, I mean, if you have different versions of curl and you have only one link in this directory, who sets this link to one of those binaries you have?
Oh, okay. So if you just run like curl, I'm guessing I actually don't know what the behavior is, but if it's just curl, then it'll probably just run the latest one, I think. But if you have a software that depends on something else, then that software will have this Nix expression where it will call. So if the Nix expression calls for like program A, then it'll go for program A. Then if you have a different program that depends on a different version of program A, then it'll call that different version program. So I actually don't know that. If you just have like, I think it does for the latest one. Pretty sure that's what it does. But yeah, so that's actually what it does. It just symlinks everything back to store. And all packages are kept in isolation for the user, so you can have multiple versions. So you could literally have like every single version of glibc in your system. And so this is a little theoretical example. So in your Nix store file, you might have a program that's free, and you might have a program that's full. So and they might depend on different versions of glibc. And so they'll actually call the different versions because if you on the Nix expression, if you wanted the 2.3 version, then it'll call the 2.3. If you want a 2.0, it'll call the 2.0. So what is NixOS? So we kind of gave a basic overview of what Nix Package Manager does. So what is NixOS? So NixOS uses the Nix package system, and it has this. So it's fairly functional, and it has this declarative installation process. So, for example, if you were to set up like your system, right? You maybe Ubuntu, maybe Arch, you set it up, and then maybe you buy a new computer, or you try to set up your work computer. Then you got to do the whole process all over again, right? You got to pick locale, pick time zone, install all your programs, have your settings ready. And Nix doesn't do that. It's just declarative installation. So everything, the OS, every single part of the OS installs with one file. So when you first install Nix, they actually don't partition the drives yet, but I think that's coming. So you have to partition your drives how you want it, and if you want to encrypt it, and then you do just NixOS install, and it'll look for this configuration.nix file, and it'll install based on that file. So all your configuration is just in this one file. So if you have one configuration and it actually builds, then this configuration will work for the rest of time, basically. So like, for example, if you have your home computer and it's got all configured and it builds, and if you have your work computer, then you just go to your work, and then you just partition the drives, and then you NixOS install, boom, like it just, and then all your configurations are done. So no need to mess with anything. I guess if you have like different like monitors, then like you need to like tweak with like the DPI and stuff, but basically it just does it. So that's my config if you want to take a look. But so here's some examples. So X server. So this is actually the Nix language. So you know, in services.x server, you enable it, and then you have the model, the keyboard model. It's Chromebook, so it'll automatically configure all the Chromebook. Like you have the large screen, small screen, brightness up, brightness down. It'll just do it all for you. DPI, I chose that DPI for my Chromebook, and that's xfce.enable enables xfce, and it sets it up for you. And then that's the touchpad driver that's got merged, and yeah, it'll actually give you the touchpad driver. I need to update that because that actually won't build. But, anyways, here's the locale config. So yeah, it's just your locale. You have your settings. If you declare this, and the installer will figure it out for you. And the time zone, it'll just figure it out. So you don't need to have this installer. You don't need to click forever. All you need to do is just write this once, and you have it forever. And so all the package config. So you could do the package config during your OS install. So no need to mess with that either. So all of this is just in one file, and it does it all for you. So you just declare it, and you're like, hey, this is what I want, build it, and it'll build it. And so NixOS also has rollbacks and atomic upgrades. So like rollbacks are pretty important. Like if you screwed it up, you want to go back, right? So no files are overwritten or deleted. So let's say, for example, you build your system, right? You have your system, and then maybe you want to upgrade the system. And so the command you'll call is NixOS rebuild build. So like the command and arguments. But so it'll build it, and if it's successful, it'll create just a newer generation. So you'll have your generation 0, and then you'll have your generation 1. It'll still keep all the files in generation 0 until you want to remove it, which can be done by.
So it's like advanced Git rebase.
Basic.
Okay, I know. It's a different concept.
Yeah, it's a different concept, but basically you could go back and yeah, it's like Git, as in you could just go back. It is more storage intensive because it keeps everything, but if you don't want your past configuration, you could just do NixOS collect garbage, and it'll just delete everything that you're not using at that moment.
To me, it sounds like copy and write file systems. So every time when the file is changed, actually the new copy of it is made, and it's been declared as the current. But if you want to go back, you just go to the script.
Yeah, I guess it's something like that. And another good thing is that Nix is actually lazy evaluation. So if you say all you want to change was your DPI, for example, in the setting, I had the DPI as 182, but maybe your work computer is like a bigger monitor and you want a different DPI, then all you need to do is all you did was change the DPI, right? And so all the Nix installer will do is change the DPI. So it'll be like that, because it doesn't need to do anything else. So actually, if you build everything from source, it kind of takes a little long. But if you want to just upgrade and you just want to change one minor thing, it doesn't take forever. It just changes that thing and you're done. So yeah, it'll actually look like this when you first boot up. So it's not mine, but yeah, you have these different generations. And it'll show you which kernel you're on, which NixOS release you're on. So yeah, you can just see everything, like generation 32, generation 33. So, and it's nice. Just go back to your old configuration. So you could literally have just like 2 configurations at the same time. And I guess if you're testing a lot of things on OS, it's actually really nice too. But, yeah. And atomic upgrade. So if an upgrade fails, like even as something as like small as like a package installation, maybe you wanted to upgrade a package, and if that package installation fails, the whole upgrade would fail. So no more like having to fiddle around just trying to get your package to work after you upgraded your system. It's also very hackable. So by default, it'll by default it'll actually pull the caches that are on the NixOS servers. But if you want, you could just you could literally compile everything from source down to the kernel. So so everything is compilable from source. By default, it won't be compilable from source. It just calls it because I did it. It takes forever, but you can if you want. And it'll actually be faster than Gen 2, where you gotta do everything.
So you have the option of downloading a binary?
Yes, it'll do that by default. But if you want to compile everything from source, you have the option. So yeah, you get the little configuration, like all the hackableness of Gen 2 without all the hassle of setting it up. Yeah, so you could compile / modify the kernel source and reproduce it on different machines. So like, I got my Gen 2 machine working on my home computer, I can't get it work, I gotta do all that work. You don't need to, you just give it the configuration and it'll just do the thing. So now we come to, it's like, hey, should everyone use like NixOS? Like it's this like big thing that's like, it's purely functional, it has atomic upgrades, rollbacks. It's great, right? Should you use it? Should everyone use it? And the answer is no. And the thing is, so it would go back to how Nix is read-only. And this is actually, it's a blessing and a curse, because so everything is in, so you can't install libraries. So like if you want to do like pip install some library, you can't, because if you do that, it'll change like the pip folder, and if you do that, it'll try to change the next door file, which it won't let it do because it's read-only. So you can't. So installing libraries isn't a thing on Nix, and it's a feature. It's not a bug. It's a feature. But so everything is in Nix. So it means like pip, npm, cargo, go. They're all in Nix. So like if you do like cargo build, it won't actually build. I tried it. If you do go build, go install, it won't do it. It'll throw you an error. So everything must be in Nix expression. So you can't use any other package manager. It has to be Nix if you're on NixOS. And so it's not really convenient for developers. I've seen people do it. Like they just like have their Go code, and then they use Nix to compile that Go code, and you can, but it's not exactly intuitive, and you got to relearn how to do everything. And then if you're on a team, then your whole team has to switch. Not.
Don't you have like use the files so you can just edit it anyway?
No. Well, you can, but it won't be. You could actually like what I guess you could do is just have it like compile it separately on a different directory, and you could do so. But at that point, why are you using Nix? Because it won't be reproducible. So yeah, like if you do it, like if you want it to be actually reproducible, you got to do it its way, and like Nix way doesn't let you use any other package managers. So it's actually really good for deployment. So development is kind of iffy because you need to like do whole separate things, but it's actually really good for deployments because like I said, if you have this one configuration.nix file, it'll build on every single other computer. Barring that it's on the same architecture. So if you build on an x86, it should run on every single x86 computer. So same for our ARM, like AARch. If you build it for AARch, then it should run on every single AARch. So actually, one of the fun things I've noticed was I was trying to get NixOS working on my Raspberry Pi, and they actually don't give you an installer. They just give you an image. So they have this system called Hydra, where so everything is like being added to the system, right? And it continuously builds like all the new changes. And there's no official installer for AARch right now, and the wiki will actually just link you back to this. You just take that and it'll run. So it's built on their ARM server thingy, and you download it and you run it, and it'll just run. So like if you have an x86 image file, then like it'll just run on any other x86 computer. So this is actually so they made they thought of this and they're like, hey, this would be really good for cloud deployment. So NixOS is a tool where you could just deploy any NixOS machines to any of the services. I think they have more, but yeah, it supports AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, and some others, I believe. So all you do is like have your Nix file. So the trivial.nix is like an example that I just took from the wiki, but it's like a configuration file. So you have these two files, and then that's the output, and you just do NixOps create, and then it'll create this. I guess it creates an image, and then all you do is NixOps deploy, and it deploys to that server that you have specified in your configuration file. So let's say, for example, you want to deploy like I don't know, some database or something. Then all you do is just that, and boom, it's on AWS.
Yeah, but only database, not the whole stack.
The whole state, as in.
Sorry, the whole stack.
It just literally just pushes the whole OS.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure what you mean by stack, but
Like if you have like a web system.
Yeah, there's like the server and like you have a database, you've got the server, maybe a caching system. So there might be 3 different deploys, or there might be all on the same
Yeah, or like
server.
5 different databases. Like one database is MySQL, other database is Oracle. Third
I actually
database
haven't.
is Redis.
I haven't done it, but I'm sure you could. I don't know. I haven't really explored this part of Nix, but you can. You can. So NixOS, Nix expressions allows for declaration of a system. So this is actually really important too, because you don't. So, like I said before, you don't install a library. What you do is you declare that library. So if you have some project, some code that you want to compile, you wouldn't call a library. You would declare the library in the Nix file. And so this is good and bad, because one, you can't do it the traditional way. So it's actually, you got to relearn everything. But let's say, for example, if you have build time dependencies, you only use those during build time. What is this good for? It's good for so it's like build inputs, and this is actually I compiled some .NET program, and all you do is just build inputs, .NET SDK, .NET packages, .NuGet. So it's like it's calling NuGet and SDK, and that's it. Like it'll just it won't install it to your computer. It'll just use them during the build time, and it'll just get rid of it. This is really good for cheaper Docker images. Like if you have some Docker files, and if you need to call, if you just need it during build time and you don't need it during runtime, you could actually do this with Nix. Because with Nix, it's not an operating system. It's an expression. So what Nix will do is it'll just build it, and it'll just throw it away because you don't need it. So like case, like, project needs glibc, they're built, but you want to use Alpine for the smallest image. So if you install glibc, then it's gonna make the image bigger. You don't need to do that with if you declare it with this Nix expression.
So what is Alpine? Is it some easier glibc?
So Alpine is a distro. It's a Linux distro that makes it that is aimed at being small as possible. So it actually doesn't have any GNU stuff on it. It's like you call it GNU Linux. This is literally not GNU Linux because there's no GNU in here. So yeah, Alpine is used a lot when you're making like Docker images because it's so small. So like you could just declare glibc during no time and then put it in the final image. It'll just build it and then boom, it's gone. So there's this guy. So it's actually a difference blog. So this guy on the bottom, he's written a pretty good article on the, just building Docker images, cheaper Docker images with Nix. And he went even further. And one of the images was 15 megabytes on Docker Hub. The smallest image was 15 megabytes on Docker Hub with Alpine Linux. He got it down to 1.2 megabytes using Nix because he just threw away everything that you don't need. So you can use it to make cheaper Docker images. Yeah. So in conclusion, Nix is NixOS, Nix packages is still not as mature as something like apt. Mostly because it's just there is a foundation, but they have no money. So everybody that's working on this is just doing it in their free time. It's actually older than Docker and Kubernetes. The actual Nix system was based on a PhD thesis back in 2003, and so this is much older than every single container system you have out there today. And I'd say it's more elegant solution, but it's not as mature. So you'll have some like documentation missing. Like for some example, you have something like car Nix where it takes a cargo.lock expression and translates it to the Nix expression, and it literally has no documentation. Literally no documentation. It's just boom, it's there. It's no documentation. The wiki's out of date. It's terrible. But yeah, it's not good. And like if you're using something like Arch Linux, then the wiki is so huge that you probably would not come across an obscure error that you can't. You won't come across an error that you can't search on Google. With Nix, it'll happen. Like it'll happen actually pretty often. Actually, it's the whole Nix packages. NixOS is on GitHub, and it gets about 2,000 pull requests a month. So it's a lot of pull requests. So if you want to contribute, there's the contributing MD. So I'm gonna go take a look, maybe try it out. It's actually really good because you could try it out and you could keep your configuration file and just come back to it later, and you'll have the same exact operating system as you left before. So yeah, that's my little introduction to Nix and NixOS. A little bit of NixOps. So yeah, any questions? Yeah, we can just talk.
How old is actually NixOS?
NixOS? It's like it's over a decade old. It's older than any container system.
This started in 2003, then it must be 16 years old.
16, yeah. So, I don't think the actual whole thing was available in 2003. That's when the paper was released. The whole thing is based on the paper. So. I actually should look it up, but I know that for sure it's older than Docker and Kubernetes.
Yeah, my question is, how often do you upgrade your system and how much time does it take?
Upgrading your system in your configuration file. So let me just.
No, I mean, for example, there was a bug found somewhere in the software you use and it was fixed.
Yes.
And usually on a normal system, you have the notification that
Oh,
there's
how
an
often they
upgrade
push?
update.
Okay. So what'll happen is they'll like change it. Like, let's say if you have can't think of a program like Firefox, and they'll fix it in the newer version. Firefox is 69 right now, so it's like you go to 70, right? And so they'll update it, but it won't be included into the actual channel. So it'll take a bit actually. But you could, so if you, what you could also do is you could just download the whole, you could just git clone the whole Nix packages, and you could build it locally. So by default, like your normal NixOS system, it's actually not as quick of an update because they need to check if it's actually reproducible. So Arch would actually be better in that, like how bleeding edge it is. But with Nix, you could, I mean, if you choose to be bleeding edge, you can by just taking just git clone Nix packages on GitHub and just build it locally.
Yeah, I'm not talking about bleeding edge. I'm just talking about, well, there was a bug in Firefox, say, and it was fixed.
Yeah.
And how much time does it take to get into your system, the system you use?
Yeah,
How
so-
much time does it take to get in there?
So, like I said, like it depends. so they'll push it to the master branch on GitHub, and from there they'll make an unstable, and then from there it takes a little longer to get to stable. So if you're just using stable version, it'll actually take a bit. But if you want the security update right away, you have the option to do so.
Yeah, and for you personally, how often do you upgrade the image of your system, and how much time does it take for you personally?
For me personally, like
Once a week or
like if I want to just
once a
change, if I want to, so you don't have to upgrade your system ever if you don't want, like anything.
but you have bugs.
If you have bugs, like you want to upgrade a package, then you don't need to do the whole install. You just do, it's like if you're just using like a package manager, you do Nix environment upgrade, or forgot which thing was it, but you can just upgrade and it'll just be like that.
Does it have like semantic versioning? So you specify your major, your minor, and if you want to patch, a specific patch, or you just want to let it update itself?
You don't want it to be like a patch. So
I see. Yeah, just major and minor.
yeah.
1.1.
But so like your question, like how long does it take? So I just took the binaries, so it's like 5 minutes. Like if it's if it's something super simple, just like changing the desktop environment, then it's like 1 minute. Doesn't take long. So like it depends on how much you want to change. Like if you want to build compile everything from source, that took me like 3 hours. But it really depends because it's a lazy evaluation. So if you only change like one thing, then it'll take like 5 seconds if you just change the DPI. But
I thought even if you want to make the small change, you need to build image, system image.
No, it doesn't build a system image. It only does it if you want. So it just it's like Git in a sense, in that like if you want to just update, it just keeps that state. It just remembers it, and it's not like building a new image. If you want to build a new image, you could actually have it built an
That sounds
image.
less scary.
So yeah, it's just
Okay, thank you.
it's like that. So what were you saying?
Can you show us an example of first maybe of Nix as a package manager, and after that Nix as an operating system?
Nix as a package manager?
Yeah, sure.
Like what specifics are you more interested in?
So like, okay, like example, on my computer I have installed like Redis, and I use Redis as well. Like I have installed Redis 2.5, like globally on my system.
Okay.
But for a specific project, I need to have like Redis 1.7.
Okay.
But just for this project. So I could use it like the mainstream way of with like using Docker image.
So if you're just doing it for that project, then you'll just in your Nix file you'll just put that in build input, or like if it's like a runtime dependency of runtime. So you don't need to install it. So yeah, you don't need to install it. It'll be in your Nix configuration, and it'll just take everything online, what it needs.
And can you also have multiple Nix installations?
Multiple Nix
Or is
installations?
it one installation with multiple users?
You could have multiple users, and you could also have multiple images. I don't think it's still a hack to have multiple. Like, I guess you could just partition the drives to have like two separate. You probably could. I don't know why you would do that.
No, but just, if you want to have like for each project unique Nix instance.
Then you could just have the versioning. Just keep it. Or yeah, you could probably do that, but I think most people will just have it as like a different generation because that's easier. Just remember your generation. If you don't remember, just build it again. It's no problem. Any other questions? Concerns? Want to try it out? See that pip doesn't work.
I believe it doesn't.
I was like, oh, it doesn't work.
So you can just try out the package manager first, right? Like
Yeah, you can, and it's really nice. Like,
so it's got versioning, so you can have like all your Python versions, even if they're incompatible.
yeah, you can. You absolutely can.
Does anyone know anyone that has NixOS installed on the Metal?
MacBook
On the Metal. Like,
on the
I
metal.
think you did that, right? You installed it as an operating system.
Yeah. And it was actually pretty usable. Like, it's actually not bad. If you want to do any development, then it kind of gets iffy because then you need to have like Nix expressions, or just have like install it separately, and that's a whole big mess.
Well, like the projector is working. Like that's really good stuff. If it's working on the NixOS.
Oh, right,
Not
yeah.
at the moment.
This is Mac.
Sorry,
This is
yeah.
Mac OS. I actually chose this because XFCE had a bug where it wouldn't work with dual monitors, and they didn't push it. They didn't push it to NixOS yet, so I didn't have it. I just didn't want to like clone and hack all the things.
If I'm using Nix,
So yeah, it'll take a little bit actually. That actually solved your question. Yeah.
if I'm using Nix package manager, I can't actually use something like Python because that's or easy install because that's a package manager in itself, and it won't work with
No, you can't, because if you have something like Ubuntu and you just have the package manager, then you just keep it separate. Like you could just put it down on your pad, like it will work.
Is there a way of like using that with NixOS?
Pip?
But like the Python package manager.
I haven't tried it, but you probably could.
So you could somehow specify Python packages in Nix.
On NixOS, or like as a Nix file, as a configuration file?
Yeah.
It depends on if they have support for that type of package manager. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. You gotta look it up. But if it's common, they should have. Like they have Go environment, Rust environment,
Python
C environment.
Then Rust and Go. So they're pretty cool.
I think it has it. There's a lot of Python stuff that are available, so probably good. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, that was my little Nix